All right. We are back in beautiful Belmar, New Jersey. We have a out of town Maryland guest today. We have Adam Greenberg, who owns multiple concepts run through the restaurant zone. Good morning, Adam. How are you today?
Morning, Tom. I'm doing fantastic.
Thanks for coming on. I'm glad to have you. To give the listeners just a quick overview, Adam is a client of Wingman's. We met him probably about a year and a half ago, and we helped him build the website for Potomac Pizza and Bagels and Grinds and Hunter's Bar and Grill, and now help with some ongoing social media, pay-per-click advertising, SEO. So it's nice to have you on. And you have a lot going on.
I definitely have a lot going on. It's been a fun 34-year career so far, and I'm just
34
getting
years.
started. Just getting started. Just last week was my 34th anniversary. I
Congratulations. That's nothing to sneeze about. There's all sorts of statistics that say, X percent of businesses won't be here in 10 years and 20 years. You've got to 34 and you're in one of the hardest industries, the food service business.
Yeah, in the restaurant
Everybody's a critic.
in the restaurant world, if you make it a year, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
Most restaurants
Exactly.
fail within the first 2 to 5 years.
So what makes you different? 34 years is like is quite an accomplishment. And and again, knowing you from you doing work at Wingman, you're very disciplined. You're very, you're on, you're numbers driven. You're on your game. You understand everything like that. So I mean, I guess that gives you a competitive advantage. But 34 years ago, when you first got into this, what was the thought process?
34 years ago, when I started our first business called the Cone Zone. It was a 699 square foot ice cream parlor. It started as me and my brother. My sisters wanted to be involved, so we let them in. And it was the four of us. And we opened a little ice cream parlor in Bethesda, Maryland called the Cone Zone, and it was 16 flavors of homemade ice cream, 6 flavors of non-fat frozen yogurt, and a 30-foot toppings bar in between the ice cream and the yogurt. And we were way ahead of the game back in the day there. In the late 80s, early 90s, yogurt was hot. People drove to their favorite yogurt parlor. Yogurt went, ice cream and yogurt went crazy. Then it died down, then it resurrected, and now it's died down again. And I think like homemade ice cream parlors are kind of making a little bit of a comeback today. But it's a hard business. No business out there is easy. But to give you a quick rundown on my history, in 92 we opened the first ice cream parlor. In March of 94 we opened the second. Um, and originally, if you would ask me, I'd say I'd have 100 ice cream parlors moving forward. But after the two ice cream parlors opened, I got an opportunity to purchase the original Potomac Pizza. So June 1st, 1995, I opened the original Potomac Pizza. And that was next door to my second Cone Zone ice cream parlor. And an interesting fact here is, I knew the owners of Potomac Pizza from being their neighbors, but basically May 1st, me and one of the owners came up with a idea that I was going to buy Potomac Pizza. He had a 50% partner, and I didn't really want his partner. Um, and so I came up with a creative idea to give his partner an opportunity to stay as long as he wanted and help us out. And I would buy the whole business. And June 1st, a little bit over 4 weeks later, we signed a new lease, we opened the entity, and we purchased Potomac Pizza.
Very
And
cool.
that direction, that purchase led me down a new direction from
Hmm.
wanting to own 100 ice cream parlors to now I'm in the pizza business. And the big difference, your numbers are similar, your labor numbers, your food cost numbers, your rent numbers are very similar, but your overall volume of sales was a fivefold in the pizza business over the ice cream business.
Wow, that's
So
a big difference.
yes. And so a few years later, I ended up opening another Potomac Pizza, my second Potomac Pizza, and I added the Cone Zone to it. So it was a Potomac Pizza storefront and a Cone Zone storefront, all connected through the back of the house.
And the great part is then you don't have additional labor costs. So you have food costs, but you don't have labor costs,
Well,
and the rent is
we had
already
additional labor costs, but we didn't have additional management cost. We could
okay.
use the same management structure. We didn't need a whole separate kitchen. We didn't need a whole separate dishwashing area. We didn't need a whole separate refrigeration freezer areas.
Hmm.
We didn't need new hot water heaters and new HVA systems. So it was definitely an economy of scale type of thing. So we did that. And long run, the ice cream parlor, which was only 400 square feet, didn't end up working out great. So over the course of time, we shut it down and we made
Okay.
some other modifications to that restaurant. Um, but from there, we opened we purchased a place called Potomac Village Deli, which was right next door to the original Potomac Pizza and in between Potomac Pizza and the second Cone Zone ice cream parlor. So now I'm in the New York kosher style deli business, I'm in the pizza business, and I'm in the ice cream business.
It's like the game of Monopoly. If you get one more, you get to put the hotel up.
Yes. So from here, I sold my ice cream parlors. I got ready to
Ooh,
open our third Potomac Pizza in Rockville, Maryland. And so now I had, the three Potomac pizzas. I had the Potomac Village Deli, and we got crazy and was given an opportunity or a challenge to open a breakfast concept, like a true, you know, simple breakfast concept. And so I
okay.
came up with the idea of Bagels and Grinds. And I opened the original Bagels and Grinds in Arundel Mills, Maryland. Um, and you know, I I had the three pizza places. I had the two bagels and no, I had three pizza places. I had the deli. I had Bagels and Grinds. And about 5, 6 years later, we were getting ready to really get really crazy, and we were going to open a Potomac Pizza and a Bagels and Grinds on the same day in the same hotel at University of Maryland in College Park,
Uh-huh.
Maryland. And a year after that, we were going to open a high-end bar and grill in another hotel in College Park. So with all this happening, and after 20 years of being in the Ketlands, which was my second Potomac Pizza, I
Yep.
decided to close that Potomac Pizza and
Okay.
focus my efforts on College Park. So in September 8th of 2017, on a Friday, we opened Potomac Pizza, College Park, and Bagels and Grinds, College Park on the same day in the
How did
same
that work out?
hotel, but on opposite ends of the hotel. So we had the
Uh-huh.
bookends to the hotel. Um, it was fun. Um, and a year later, in August of 2018, we opened a 6,000 square foot high end open kitchen concept bar and grill with a 40-seat bar, 160-seat restaurant. And it was spectacular. But the lesson learned here was I opened a great restaurant in a college town, and after 8 years, it was determined it was the wrong concept for the college town. And so we
Okay.
let that one go. Um, in the meantime, I think I skipped over in 2006, I opened Potomac Pizza in Chevy Chase, Maryland.
Hmm.
I don't know if I skipped that one over.
You did.
And um, then I also, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was supposed to open in March of 2020, Potomac Pizza in Middle River, Maryland. March of
Okay.
2020, we were supposed to open. March, I think it was 19th of
Uh-huh.
2020, the world shut down. And in February, late February, I saw what was kind of happening and I got the opportunity to punt for 6 months. And we punted, we renovated the restaurant there a little bit. We added a full bar. The shopping center had a liquor license. In
Hmm.
Baltimore County, it's very difficult to get a liquor license. So the shopping center had one that they were going to give me. So we decided instead of opening and building the bar later, we would build the bar now and punt until August of 2020, which was still deep into COVID, but
Sure.
we did that. And so, long and short of it, pretty much that's where we are today. We have five Potomac pizzas, we have three Bagels and Grinds, and we have one. And oh, when I closed College Park Grill, which was my high-end bar and grill in
Hmm.
College Park, I kind of did a expensive swap, as we call it. There was a bar and grill in Potomac, Maryland called Hunter's Bar and Grill that had been around for 40 plus years.
Hmm.
My dad used to eat there every Tuesday night. He had been bugging me for a long time to purchase it. I kept telling him no, 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 no. Finally, when I told him I was closing College Park Grill, he said, "Are you going to buy Hunter's?" I left his house that Sunday afternoon. I walked into Hunter's. I knew the two owners. Murray, the younger brother, was there. He was 80. And we went in the back and I said, "Murray, I'm going to buy your restaurant." And he laughed at me. And I said, "No, no, no, no. Murray, I'm going to buy your restaurant." We sat down for about 30 minutes after he realized I was serious.
Yep.
We laid it all out on the table in that 30 minutes. And about 4 months later, that's the deal we settled on.
Wow. So you're kind of the man about town in this area of Maryland, swapping deals, opening, closing. And again, I like the fact that if it's not working for you, you close them. Like there are a lot of entrepreneurs that hang in there way too long. If it's not, it sounds like there's some concepts that you did very well, you've done very well with, and you're running with, and there's other concepts that you said, look, the numbers don't work, or it's not worth it.
Yeah, and another little interesting story. When I bought Potomac Village Deli in 2001, whatever it was, the deli was originally owned by a gentleman named Sam Lerner. He was the deli man. He was the best deli guy in the city, and he had sold it a few years earlier. The people he had
Hmm.
sold it to had pretty much run it into the ground,
Okay.
and they were already about to become 2 months behind on their lease, on their rent payments. The owner of the shopping center told them, "Why don't you call Adam? Maybe he'll buy it." And so they approached me. I remember that it was a Tuesday night. I was at a Wizards game, and Michael Jordan was playing on the Wizards at the time.
Uh-huh.
And um, you know, they said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Give me 24 hours. I'll let you know." And so uh, the next morning, I called up my buddy Sam, who was the original owner of Potomac Village Deli, and I
Yep.
said, "Sam, do you want to come back?" And, that afternoon, me and Sam and his wife sat down and we met. We talked about it. We came up with an arrangement. Um, and 8 days later, we took over Potomac Village Deli. And when I tell
Wow.
you, I don't even think I walked into the restaurant barely.
Yep.
There was no due diligence. There was no nothing. Sam was the guy. He knew the business. He knew what we had to do to fix it, to bring it back around. And uh, the deal was done in 8, 9 days. And the papers were comparing us to Michael Jordan coming back to the Wizards, coming back to play some
Yeah.
basketball.
That's
Um,
great.
and it was a lot of fun. When you want something, you want to make it happen. I mean, maybe sometimes it's better to take a little more time, but I'm pretty aggressive, and if I want something, I make it happen.
That's great. So now it's 2026. It's spring of 2026. What's next? What are you thinking about? What's going on that what's got your mind? Even when I was talking to Dave, who works for Wingman, ahead of this podcast, he said to me, "You got to ask Adam what his next concept is, because I'm sure he's not just going to be sitting content." So what's on your mind?
Well, so the most recent concept that we did is in Potomac, Maryland, with the original Potomac Pizza. We
Oh.
did a full renovation to Potomac Pizza, and we added bagels and grinds. And originally, so during COVID, Um, you know, we struggled a lot at a lot of our restaurants, and thank God for the government assistance because that
Hmm.
helped us, be here. It helped us survive COVID and thrive after COVID. So
Okay.
one of the things we did, so we had a pizza place, a grill, and a bagel place in College Park, Maryland. Okay. So we're in a conference hotel that had no conferences. Actually, 2 weeks into the pandemic, they shut down. We're in a college town with no students. We're in a
Hmm.
college sports town with no sporting events. Um, and I've got two restaurants in this hotel that just closed. So College Park Grill, we had actually shut down on, I think it was March 16th, that Monday.
Hmm.
I mean, my general manager and my chef, they didn't even ask me. They knew we were 99.99% dine in. They just furloughed everyone and started shut down the restaurant.
Hmm.
At Bagels and Pizza, I went to my team and I said, "Here's the deal, guys. We had heard some remnants of PPP. but we didn't really know anything. Nobody knew anything at the time. And I had
Yep.
people that had worked for me for a long time making a lot of money, but nobody can afford to carry 7 restaurants on their back, right? I mean,
No.
I just couldn't. So I went to my oldest employee, Oscar, at Potomac Pizza. I said, Oscar, here's the deal. There was no elevated unemployment insurance at the time. I said, we can close, everybody can go collect unemployment insurance, and maybe in 3 or 4 months when the pandemic's over, I mean, literally, we all thought it was going to be over in 3 or 4 months, um, we can reopen, but it's going to be really hard to reopen once you close a restaurant. You don't have the same capital you have.
Yeah.
You closed with a ton of debt. It was really a difficult time. And so Oscar went back to the kitchen, talked to the guys, and came back out and said, Adam, because I basically said, all I can do is afford to pay everyone $500 a week. I can't give you your $1,000, your 1,500, but whatever people were making. Oscar came back out and said, Adam, we just want to work. You tell us what we need to do. You do what you can do. We're here. We're going to work.
That's a good team. That's a
I mean, a dynamite team. I went to the bagel shop and said the same thing, and they said the same thing. We just want to work.
that's that's awesome.
So we had restaurants, with $1,000, $1,200 a day payroll doing three, four, $500 in sales, and that was at the depressed payroll.
Yeah.
Um, and I credit these guys a lot for us still being alive today and thriving today. And
Is
during the
Oscar still with
pandemic,
you?
oh yeah, I mean, almost all of them are still with me.
That's great.
And during the pandemic, as we got extra money from the government, we did what we were supposed to do, and we shared it with our teams, and we gave them bonuses, and we gave them raises, and you know, e- every we survived, and they did well. And
Yep.
I was really proud of that because it was really important. To me, you know, I didn't understand the decisions that they made and that we made staying open and keeping all our kitchen staff employed, not letting one
Uh-huh.
kitchen staff go. There were a couple bussers and a couple servers that got furloughed, but most of the servers became cashiers because we were still
That's
doing
great.
carry out
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, a handful of people, maybe 5% of all of
Uh-huh.
our people at the most got furloughed, but everyone else got kept. And um, you know, so Bagels and Grinds is doing $300 a day with $1,100, $1,200
Yep.
payroll. And I'm like, there's a ton of people in Potomac, Maryland that would love bagels because we have no bagel shop, but they're not coming to College Park.
Yep.
I came up with a system by the first week in April. So this is only like 2 weeks into the
2
pandemic,
weeks out. Yeah.
right? And where people could pick up bagels on Saturdays in Potomac.
Okay.
And, so they would prepay for them.
Yep.
We would make them in College Park. We would bag them, and we transport them down to Potomac every Saturday morning, and they could pick up between 8 and 10 a.m.
For the listeners, how far of a distance was that transport?
It's like 20 miles. It's like 20
Okay.
miles. So
Okay.
not terrible, but they weren't driving there. They weren't making the half-hour commute
Understood.
to College
Understood.
Park. And so, um, the first month or two, we were selling almost 2,000 bagels a Saturday. And
Wow.
that's a lot of bagels,
Mhm.
you know, and they were all prepaid for. It was, 150, 175 bags of bagels.
Mhm.
And you could order one bagel, you could order a dozen bagels, whatever you wanted, cream cheese, lox, and all you had to do is pull up in front of the store. Some people would hold up a piece of paper with their name on it. They would pop the trunk or, tell me to
Yeah.
put it in the back seat, and they'd be gone in 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I did this for exactly 5 years.
Wow.
On the 5-year anniversary is the day that we reopened our new Potomac Pizza and Bagels and Grinds in Potomac, Maryland. And sitting
Wow.
outside every Saturday for 5 years, minus maybe a dozen Saturdays.
Yep.
Dozen. The first year I didn't miss a Saturday. Sunday there was an outdoor car show. We were here selling coffee and bagels on Sundays in Potomac. Um, you know, I thought about it a lot over the first year. That's where we came up with the concept to renovate Potomac Pizza, add the bagel shop. Originally, they were going to be separate restaurants, but the bagel shop got smaller and smaller, and we added more space to the pizza shop. So
Yep.
we put down to like 16 seats. And my other two bagel shops have somewhere between 60 and 80 seats each.
Wow. Those are big
So
bagel shops.
yeah. And so I said, why don't we just open the two restaurants up to each other? Because we don't even open Potomac Pizza till 11 o'clock. And so, now we have all the seating for Potomac Pizza and all the seating for bagels available to all the bagel people in the mornings. At
Yep.
lunch, we share the seating. And at dinner, Potomac Pizza gets all the seating.
Yep.
And we throw in a bar in the middle. So it's kind
Oh,
of a
cool.
non-traditional place for a
Yeah.
nice, modern, full liquor bar with 12 stools. But it worked really well. And so you're asking my question. This year, 2026, is the year to focus on our 9 restaurants, make sure we have all the systems in place properly, because we've kind of done this just organically. We've just opened restaurants. And I've
Yep.
got a great team, and the great teams made it happen. Uh, but we need to put more systems in place. We need to get a little bit more organized. About 3 years ago, we hired a corporate chef, Chef Tennille Middleton, who is on season 6 of Hell's Kitchen. She made it
Oh,
to the
cool.
quarterfinals, and she was brought back for some All Stars and some other shows, and she's fantastic. She's an amazing talent, and she's been great. But it's a monumental task to take what I've been building over 30 years and kind of streamline it and get it all organized. So she's working really hard with my team on that, which is helping me out a lot. Um, so um, the other interesting thing that happened to us during COVID is College Park Grill, we closed on March
Okay.
16th. So 7 days later, the following Sunday at around 1 o'clock, and we were in a separate hotel from the pizza and the bagel shop. I got a call from the sales director for all the hotels for the group, and he said, "Can you do breakfast and dinner for 127 people?" Without hesitation, I said, "Absolutely." And this was for College Park Grill. And I said, "When does it start?" He said, "In 4 hours." So, and I said, "No problem." I mean, no hesitation. I said, "No
Yeah.
problem." I said, "I picked the menu for the first couple days, though." I mean, and he said, "Absolutely." So, before I even called my general manager and my chef, I called my general manager at Potomac Pizza down the street, and I said, "Jim," and I knew we had plenty of food there because we had just shut down. You'd been shut
Yep.
down a week earlier, so our freezers were full of stuff. And I said, "Jim, we got dinner for 127 people tonight. You have 4 hours. Caesar salad, meatballs, linguine, chicken parm, garlic knots, and some cookies and brownies for dessert.
Yep.
Um, can you do it?" Absolutely. Then I called my chef and my general manager. I said, "We're back. Round up some of the team, and we have the National Guard moving into the hotel." So I didn't know what it was initially, but
Yeah.
it turned
Sure.
out to be down at FedEx Field where the Redskins or now Commanders play. They were doing testing for COVID and stuff. So the National Guard were helping out with the testing and security and stuff like that. And so we had a whole battalion of MPs move into the hotel.
Wow.
And initially, being the government that we have, everybody had to be 2 people in a room. So they took all the double rooms, but not the king bedded rooms, and they
Yep.
took the rooms at the hotel directly next, Best Western, right next to us. And then immediately they realized this is COVID. Everybody needs their own room. So they put one person in, they took over the whole hotel, 150 rooms, put
Uh
one
huh.
person in every room, and still took another 20 rooms next door. So within a week, we we're up to 165 people. And it was breakfast and dinner every
Yep.
day for 165 people. Now we were only getting paid $18 a day for breakfast and dinner. So we were, or $22. It wasn't a lot of money, whatever it was, but it was contracts food. And we only knew how to make good food. We didn't know how to make cheap food. So we still made good food for the people. And they were thrilled because they were eating the best food they had ever had. Um, but we knew we had to make, X amount of food. So it was
Uh
easier.
huh.
And then a week or two in, we realized not everyone's eating every day. So it's 165. We can make food for 130. And if we need more food, we've got it. We can make it. No one's going
Yes.
hungry. But the real clincher here was that put us over the top. As I told you earlier in the podcast, that we had a bar with 40 stools. It was a
Hmm.
beautiful center island bar with 3 wells, double 12 beer taps. I mean, and a very high end liquor and stuff. And so some of the MPs are like, "Is the bar going to be open?" I said, "You see Sarge over there? You ask Sarge. If Sarge says the bar is open, the bar is open." So they went up to their sergeant, and sergeant said, "Bar is open." So my general manager, Dan, got some big black trash bags and covered all the windows, because we didn't want it. We would have been the only bar open in the country, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so we closed off all the windows. We had exclusive use to the hotel, and we were filled with MPs. So who's going to shut us down?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Exactly.
And so the bar was open every night. And we had, but, I'm like, we have the men and women, of our National Guard, working here. So we can't charge them $35 for a glass of tequila or something.
No, no,
So I
no.
said, here's the deal, guys. $5 drops, $5 house wines, and $5 rail drinks. Right? I figured that's a good
Yeah.
price point, right?
Very
You know,
fair.
we'd make a couple bucks, but we're not getting rich off of it, and we
Yeah.
take care of the National Guard. Yeah, they were buying all that expensive stuff.
They were still getting their full paycheck.
They were having a great time. The girls running the bar at night were getting tipped really well. They were really
Yep.
happy. And we were bringing in another $1,500, $2,000 a day, which is what put us over the top. That made it work for us. And
So
this went on.
you just kind of figured it out. Like you just kind of just kept going with it.
That's what you had to do during COVID.
So talk about grit. I mean, that's grit. Like you started out, you told you guys, hey, I could give you this, I could do this. Then you got the shipping down, and you started moving bagels, and then you got into this. Like I love that. I love the hustle that you never stopped. You never stopped moving your feet. You just kept getting things done to progress.
Yeah, I mean, on Tuesdays at Potomac Pizza, we have a promotion. Buy one large pizza at full price
Hmm.
and get a second large cheese for 99 cents.
Wow.
And over the years, we went from 99 cents to 1.99 to 2.99 back to 99 cents. That 99 cents a really powerful number. And it was only for dine in and carry out, not for delivery, because we wouldn't have been able to keep up with the delivery.
Yeah.
And so during COVID, we pushed this really heavily. And I just remember in my Potomac location, which is the original location, we would have 20, 25 cars lined up to pick up their pizzas on Tuesday night.
Wow.
I mean, it was insane. We would do 200, 225 specials on Tuesday night. Um, and it worked really well, you know. So, we worked COVID really hard. Remember, most people were working remotely or working from home. We had to come to work every day. Our whole team had to come to work every day. At the College Park Grill, we're feeding the people that are doing testing on people with COVID.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, so talk about being on the front lines. We might as well have been on the front lines with the National Guard because we're sitting there feeding them every day. You couldn't get masks. You couldn't.
And drinking with them.
Right, right. I mean, gloves were hard to get. Masks were hard to get.
Yeah.
You just couldn't get stuff. I mean, I figured it out. I figured out how to get 10,000 masks and I got them, and I figured out how to get gloves that used to be $30 a case that went up to $180 a case for the
It's
same
crazy.
stinking gloves.
I
You know,
know.
we got hosed by the people in China, but it's, you know, it was survival of the fittest and I was going to
You
make
had to
sure
do
we
what you had to
survived.
do. It
Yep.
didn't matter. You needed the glove, you needed the mask, you had to figure it out. So,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
had a company that was delivering 300 cases of gloves to our corporate office, gloves, and then we distribute cases. So this is like 300,000 gloves, and then
yeah,
we would distribute them to the stores and stuff
yeah,
because the only way I could get gloves.
yeah, yeah. So now you're going to put some systems in place to take this restaurant concept. And again, if you start looking at some of these systems, you probably find some efficiencies, and that's going to help you continue to grow. Do you want to open any more Potomac Pizza or Bagels and Grinds?
So, so, so leading back to that original
Yeah.
question, right? And so the concept we just built in Potomac, to me, is the future of my
Okay.
company.
Great.
So it's Potomac Pizza, it's Bagels and Grinds, and it's a bar.
And
And
the
it's
bar
all
right in the middle.
bar in the middle. It's sharing one space, sharing bathrooms. Bathrooms are expensive to build.
Hmm.
Sharing refrigeration. Refrigeration's expensive to build. but having separate kitchens, right? So they
Right.
can have their own kitchens. They can share prep areas. They can share dough rooms where we make pizza dough and bagel
Mhm.
dough. They can share refrigeration, but they can have completely separate identities out front. They can share, if needed, they can share the dining room. If not needing, it can be completely separate. But to me, that's the concept.
That's the
If,
concept.
and I say if because I'm a pretty crazy guy, but if I ever open another restaurant, that
I
will
think
be.
the better question is when.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Um, Restaurants are expensive. Everything's expensive today.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had to fix a couple freezers at some restaurants that cost me ten to $12,000. I mean, years ago, the whole freezer wouldn't have cost me ten to twelve thousand
Yeah,
dollars.
sure.
And now just to repair it costs me ten to $12,000. Everything's so damn expensive today.
Yeah.
Um, and so, you know, when we look at purchasing equipment, like this last round, I went with a company called True. And True used to be the bottom of the barrel restaurant equipment. It used to be bargain basement. Now it's built really well, and it comes with a 7-year warranty, bumper to
Okay.
bumper, bumper to bumper. Light bulb goes out, compressor goes down, it stops working, it's covered by warranty. And, in an operational sense in the restaurant world, you get killed with maintenance and repairs.
Yes.
And so I'd rather spend a little bit more capital up front on the equipment, but not have to worry about
The
all
headache.
the excess repairs.
Makes sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. So, for a listener who's thinking about going into the restaurant business, since you've been in it for as long as you have, you've had multiple different concepts. What do you what's that aspiring guidance that you could give a new entrepreneur who's interested in food service?
The first thing I would say, don't do it. And the second thing, I mean, anyone who asks me, and I have a lot of people that will call me up and say, "What should I do?" The first thing I say is, don't do it. And after I talk to them for 30 minutes and tell them all the reasons why not to do it, if they're still interested, and then I'll go into the next layer of, well, what you have to look out for. And the number one reason restaurants fail is because they're undercapitalized.
Hmm.
And so some people are like, oh, I'm going to go to my friends and family. I'm going to get 100 grand here and 50 grand here and 100 grand there. And I need 250 grand to open the restaurant, but you probably need 400 grand to open the restaurant because 250 is whatever your number is, it's going to be 10 to 20% more than that. And then what about when you have to hire people and train people before you even open?
Yep.
Where's the money coming for that? When you sign your lease, you're like, hey, I got a great deal on the lease. And they're like, okay, give me security deposit, give me the first month's rent and the last month's rent and blah, blah, blah. And well, you weren't planning on that. There's another 5, 10, 15, $20,000. And
Hmm.
then the lawyers you have to hire to negotiate the lease if you're doing that and to set up your business entity. And there's all these hidden expenses. And then to top it off, and the big beautiful bill from Trump has helped us out a lot. I know, and I don't know exactly what it's done to pre-opening expenses, but pre-opening expenses like these used to be 15-year depreciation. So you would think, oh, it's my lawyer fee, but no, it's a pre-opening expense. My account would only let me write that off over 15 years.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
but I think the big beautiful bill has accelerated a lot of this stuff where you can write off almost all your equipment, almost all your capital expenses, maybe not HVAC, electrical, and some plumbing, but most of your expenses can be written off day one, which is amazing. So
Sure.
you spent the money, you get that write off right away. So if you do really well and you make money, well, you've got all this write off to offset those profits for a couple years. So you're not paying taxes,
Makes
which
sense.
is really, really helpful in this world. Because on the opposite side of things, when you've got 15, 30-year depreciation, you could be making money, but your taxes overwhelm the money you made. So
Hmm.
you might have to pay all your money out in taxes, or more money in taxes than you actually made, you know. So it can be a tough situation if you don't plan for it properly. And I'm talking about the restaurants that are making money.
Sure.
The chances of making money in your first year or two are very slim,
Yeah.
very slim. I mean, it happens. But, you've got to build up your business. You've got to market your business. Did you open a restaurant that there's demand for? Do people want that product? Is there too much of that product in the market already? There's so many variables that have to be looked at.
Hmm.
Um, and even with all your homework and the best laid plans, there's still no guarantees.
Yeah.
No guarantees, in this world. I'm not guaranteed a minimum wage when I own a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
If we lose money, I'm getting a negative paycheck, you know?
Exactly. Yep.
So, you have employees that expect to be paid on payday every week or every other week, however you do it. And if you don't pay them, they're gonna have another job the next week, you
Sure.
know? So we've been doing this for 34 years. We've never missed a payroll in 34 years. And, most people that have been in the labor force for 34 years have worked for a company that's missed a payroll.
Sure.
It's hard. You've got a lot of bills to pay. You've got payroll coming up. You've got rent. Do you pay Cisco? Do you pay your employees? Do you pay your landlord? Well, if you don't pay Cisco, do they not deliver it to you? And then you don't have food to sell. And if you don't have
Yeah.
food to sell, you can't pay your landlord. You can't pay your employees.
It's a catch-22, and I don't think anybody realizes how hard it is to operate a small, medium-sized business, to all these points. Like, again, you have a slow week. Oh, we had snow. Oh, we had this. Oh, I'm waiting on in your world, you're not really you're COD. They buy the pizza, they're paying for it. But in
Yes,
other worlds, you're waiting on payments from people. Oh, the check's in the mail. How many times have you heard that? Like, so there's just so many expenses that the employees don't understand it, and it's not their problem. It's not their
right.
fault. It's not their problem. They signed up, and you said, "I'll pay you X amount of dollars to work here." That's their contract. That has nothing to do with the fact that the revenue's not there, or the sales aren't there, or the bills, or the invoices are outstanding. But on the other side is like there's so many obstacles for a small business owner to navigate. If you're not tough and you don't have thick skin, it's definitely not a place to be, because it's a very lonely place on Friday afternoons.
It is. And most employees don't understand if they get paid $1,000 a week, it cost us, you know, an extra, um, $112, extra 10%,
You
12%.
got that. Plus, then if they have the 401k and the match, and
Right.
then the health benefits, they have no concept that those things cost into the employer's you know
And most
number.
people opening a business don't evaluate any of this and
No,
understand this either.
no. At the beginning, what's funny is I just upped my PTO policy, and one of my longest standing employee, started out working at my kitchen table. She's the one who managed the builds of your website. Her name is Tony. And I wrote in an email to her and two other employees that had been a long time. I said, Tone, when you were working at my kitchen table, I never thought that this would be your PTO schedule. And I'm glad that we've been able to do it. But again, when you think about that hard cost and that weekly number, well, then take on the PTO and you take on all those other things that has to get added into the number, because if they're not working, you don't have you know you know revenue to you don't have work to show against to that revenue.
Well, but in your world, they can make up that work next week or
Yes.
whatever. In my
Yeah.
world, when the cashier's not at the register, the cashier's not at the register.
I
They
I
can't work
totally agree
remotely. They
with
can't
you.
work from home. They can't make up that
I
day's
got
business. I mean, if we have a snow day, we've lost that business, right? If
totally
you have a snow
understood.
day, you haven't lost any revenue. Like certain businesses don't lose revenue. Sure, it might cost them a little money with things, but when we're closed for a snow day, we are closed. You know,
I understand. And I feel your pain. And we work with a number of restaurants and retail businesses, so I feel that pain. Just through the eyes of the customer, my client. So I totally get it. Last Sunday night we were scrambling to do some last minute posts for a big Italian deli and marketplace that we do, and they have two stores. And Sunday afternoon, me and Jenna from the social team are coordinating with their GM over there to kind of get the post set up. If we have this amount of snow, we're going to do this. If you
right.
have this, you're going to do this. So I'm fully on board. I understand and empathize with you on
How
those
much
days.
snow did you guys get?
We got a lot. We got about 20 inches.
Well, my son's up in Rhode Island,
Okay.
37 inches,
37.
37 inches. I mean, I don't even know what you do with 20 inches, let alone 37 inches. It's
The good
insane.
thing is it's been 42, 44. So like a lot of snow has melted. Like even this morning when I was driving in um from my home. Now my house has a lot of snow because we got enough to get it off the driveway and the walkways, and that was,
Right.
I'm not into doing more than I need to on that.
Right. No.
I don't need to be an overachiever. So but as I was driving in this morning, like, a lot of the snow has melted. And we're in you heard me say when we first started, we're in Belmar, New Jersey. They postponed the St. Patty's Day parade, which is always 2 weeks before St. Patty's, for this Sunday because of all the snow, and they
Oh, yeah.
rescheduled it. But part of the town wants to know why we're not doing the parade this Sunday.
Yeah, it's great. So Blake works for a new restaurant that opened Wednesday. So it opened 2 nights ago, right? So they had the snow on Sunday.
Yeah,
It still opened on Wednesday. In DC here, if we had 6 inches of snow, I mean, we got 8 inches of snow in
yeah,
early February, like, and we were shut down for like a week. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Crazy.
but yeah, they got their restaurant open on Wednesday, and
Good for
last night
him.
was their second night, and I mean, it's a small boutique restaurant, like 50, 60 seats.
Okay.
Uh, but it's a great opportunity for him to get to, be part of an opening team of a boutique restaurant. He's the number two guy in the kitchen, and it's pretty exciting.
Awesome. That's really great. Do you want to shout out the restaurant for those that are listening?
Uh, I, uh, if I knew the name, I
All right, then keep moving. Good luck. Good luck to that restaurant, and I hope they do great things. Adam, it was great having you on the podcast today. I'm inspired by all you've accomplished and all you continue to accomplish. For the visitors, if they want to find you on social media, if you want to name one of the restaurants or on your website, give one of the mentions, and then know that if anybody wants to speak to him about a different concept, he's got the three, but we'll label, he'll
Yeah, I
identify
mean, I've
one.
got Potomac Pizza, I've got Hunter's Bar and Grill, I've got Bagels and Grinds, and my email's just Adam at PotomacPizza.com. And all the feedback, I get a copy of every feedback from any restaurant. So if you go to any of the websites, fill out any of the feedback forms, I'm gonna see it. But Adam at Potomac Pizza, I'm very transparent. I get, 500 to 1,000 emails a day, and as I start going through them, they just keep building up and up and up. And, I'm always proud when I get my inbox down to 200 emails.
There you go. Well, I'm glad this was great. This is a great conversation. And, again, thank you for working with Wingman and Heather and Dave. And I look forward to hearing continued success from this story.
Fantastic. It's been a lot of fun being here today, Tom.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.